your focus improves, so your productivity increases, you have great mental concentration and focus because you're not in a depleted state. And so your body's able to function normally. You have greater insight into your life, and you can use the sexual energy, you can refine it to experience vastly expanded states of consciousness and spiritual connection. Hey guys, I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can magnetize your ideal life. So semen retention versus LSD. LSD is, of course, a psychedelic compound which people take for various reasons. Microdosing LSD has become a very popular practice, and I just want to compare the practice of semen retention to the benefits of microdosing or taking LSD and how that can relate to your life. So as I said, microdosing psychedelic compounds such as LSD, psilocybin is becoming a very popular practice in this world. A lot of people who are looking for an edge, in productivity, in creativity, being focused, and just having that, mental faculty intact, taking nootropics. So people are really looking for any way to have an edge, in their life, or to experience altered states, get insight into their life, or experience higher spiritual states. And so this is kind of a more external alchemical approach. So external alchemy is taking these substances, these external substances, putting them into your body, changing your body chemistry, changing your frame of mind, and leading to accelerated growth in your life. So you're relying on something from the outside world. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but this is how the external alchemical approach works. Internal alchemy is not using any external substances. It's using internal meditative practices, internal energy practices to naturally change your body chemistry, to naturally put yourself into altered states of enhanced consciousness, of greater creativity and focus. So this is the approach where you don't need anything from the outside world. You don't need to put anything into your body. And this is a more, ancient esoteric tradition of many internal lineages. So semen retention is an incredible practice that allows you to build up high levels of energy. Most men are used to frequently ejaculating their energy out. Porn addiction is a common thing, so a lot of men are just masturbating and releasing their life force away when they could be capturing that energy, they could be harnessing it. Most men don't know what it's like to have a full charge of sexual energy in their bodies because they're locked down with tension. They can't handle this sexual charge. As soon as they feel it, they need to release it. When you're practicing semen retention, you build up this sexual energy and you allow the body to adjust to a higher degree of this sexual charge, and you get a lot of the same benefits that people are talking about, that they're getting from microdosing LSD without having to take the substance. So you get enhanced creativity, greatly enhanced creativity. Sexual energy is creative energy, so it really improves your inspiration, your ideas that you have. Your focus improves, so your productivity increases, you have great mental concentration and focus because you're not in a depleted state. And so your body's able to function normally. You have greater insight into your life, and you can use the sexual energy, you can refine it to experience vastly expanded states of consciousness and spiritual connection. And of course, in my opinion, you get the greatest benefits of semen retention by doing meditation practice, by doing internal energy practices, breath work, to really work with the sexual energy, move it throughout the body. And that's really how you get into these higher altered states of expanded consciousness, is by doing these internal practices. So adding semen retention to the mix makes for a very, very potent internal alchemical experience where you don't need any external substances. So the benefit of semen retention versus, microdosing LSD or taking other substances is that you get all of these benefits that you want without some of the negative side effects. First of all, when you're taking the external approach, you're relying on something that's outside of yourself. You're relying on an external factor that may not always be there. It's easy to get obsessive with these kinds of things like, oh, I need this substance to feel this way, or I can't get anything done unless I have this first, So you're kind of giving your power away to the external world. And, here in the United States, LSD is illegal, so there can be legal consequences for doing this as well. But again, I have no judgments here. Whatever works for you is great. I'm just offering my own opinion, my own experience. But I have personally experimented with LSD in the past, so I want to share with you my experience both of taking, a higher dose of LSD and a low dose microdosing LSD. So I really only had one, experience with really tripping on LSD several years ago. About 7 years ago, I tried LSD. And at this time in my life, I was very fascinated with psychoactive substances. I was very fascinated by how you can take these substances, put these things in your body, and it completely changes your mental state. It completely changes your perception of the world around you. This used to be a fascinating thing for me. I used to smoke weed every day and, take magic mushrooms and things like that. And so naturally, I wanted to try LSD. So I got some from a friend. I decided to take one hit of LSD. So I had like those little, paper tab things where they drop the LSD on, and you really don't know how much is going to be on there. So I'm like, okay, I'll just take one whole tab and try it out. So I took it, and I was up in the mountains. I wanted to have a little solo adventure. So I went on a hike, and about 30 minutes in, I'm listening to some good music, kind of feeling good. About 30 minutes in, I started feeling drastically different. Like it was coming on really, really strong. And I know that, from experience with other psychedelic substances, that it usually takes like 90 minutes to 2 hours to fully kick in. So I'm like 30 minutes in, already starting to trip pretty good. I'm like, okay, this is going to be really strong. So here we go, right? And, about 30 minutes later, everything's starting to melt. My mental state is getting very intense, very strange. I'm hallucinating like crazy. Everything in my vision's like blurring together. Everything's just like, coming at me, lots of fractal patterns. Everything's feeling very, very intense, and I'm like blasting off into the cosmos, thinking about some really crazy things. It felt like every movement I was doing, every thought that I had was manifesting everything in the world around me. It was a very strange experience. So I'm making my way back towards, I was just outside the city, and I wanted to go back to this park to kind of, settle down a bit. And, I'm starting to really kind of lose it. It's getting quite terrifying for me, to be honest. So I called one of my friends. He's like a really Zen Buddhist guy. He's an acupuncturist as well, a good friend of mine. So I call him and I'm like, hey, Scott, I took some LSD. I'm tripping balls. Do you have any advice for me to calm down a little bit? And he's like, just remember, it's just chemicals in your blood. He's like, go find a spot on the earth to lay down and just let it wash through you. So I did that. I went to this park and I laid on the grass and just let the energy flow through me. And I remember feeling these pulses of energy up and down my spine. I felt the pulse of the earth beneath me. Very intense, but it was actually a little bit more enjoyable now. And then I remember I heard this voice say, hey, you want to go smoke this joint with me? And so I opened my eyes and there's this very hippie looking type of person standing there. And I should mention here that I was quite the hippie type myself at this time in my life as well. I had very long hair and, as you can imagine. So I'm like, sure, let's go smoke a joint. So we walk around this hill, at this park, and we go to the backside of the hill and he lights up this really fat joint. And bear in mind, we're like right off of this path where all these people and, weed's illegal where I live. So I think that I hallucinated this whole experience with this guy because there's no way people will just, let us smoke a joint there. Anyways, so we're smoking this joint and he's talking about some crazy things. He's like, yeah, extraterrestrials are coming to this planet because, we haven't been taking very good care of this planet. They left us here and now they're coming to kind of remove us and take the planet back. So, some heavy shit for someone who's peaking on LSD. So at that point, a deer jumped over the fence nearby us. And then another deer jumped over and another deer and another deer. This whole family of deer is jumping over this fence about 50 feet from us. And he hands me a flute, this newfound friend of mine, he hands me a flute. I had never played a flute before in my life. It's like this wooden flute type of thing. And I start playing this thing, start playing some, pretty sweet melodies on it, which is another reason I think it was a hallucination. I had never played a flute before. So I'm playing this flute and the deer start looking at me and they start walking over towards us. And, my new friend is like, hey, they like it, keep going. So I keep playing this flute, the deer keep coming closer. And then one of them starts kind of like, scratching his foot on the ground like he's about to charge us. And I'm getting a little freaked out. I'm like, hey, we better get out of here. These deer are getting pissed off. So we walk back to the main part of the park. And so at this point, we started speaking star language to each other, whatever that means. I just remember that we were speaking in very strange sounds, kind of gibberishy. And I remember I first did it and he said, oh, you can speak star language too. So we're speaking to each other in this star language. And then we start playing music together. So I've got his flute and he's just beatboxing. We're making some really sick jams. It seemed like it's me at the time. I remember this cute girl walked near us in this park and I'm looking at her just like playing some jams. I'm like, oh, she's digging this music. And so, and in hindsight, I was probably there sitting in this park shirtless, playing an imaginary fruit, just frying my balls off. I don't think that this experience actually happened in the physical realm at least. So anyways, and then things were getting a little too intense for me. So I called some friends of mine who lived pretty close to the park. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go walk to their house and kind of let them take care of me, because I had a feeling I was going to get arrested or something if I stayed out in public. So I walked to my friend's house. And when I got there, I was speaking my star language to them. They tell me now that I was, for the first like 15 minutes I was there, I was just speaking gibberish. Like they didn't understand a word I was saying. I was on another planet basically. And so I kind of started, at this point, I had this experience where it was like, as I said, I felt like I was connected to everything in the universe. It was all part of my mind. And it was like everything was collapsing down. It was like everything that could have ever existed had already been created and had come to its end. It had come to its completion and the entire universe was imploding on itself. There was nothing else to be created. No thoughts were left and everything was vanishing, all consciousness. It was a very, very heavy, intense, and terrifying experience. So not long after this, my friends were kind of trying to make like small talk, talk about relatable things to bring me back to reality. And eventually I did start coming back down. I remember I started having more normal type of thoughts, and I just said like, oh my God, I'm back, because I didn't think I was coming back from that. And so I spent the rest of the night feeling extremely grateful to be back in a normal frame of mind, to still be alive, and to no longer be stuck in those intense, psychedelic mind frames. It was a very terrifying experience. There wasn't very much of it that was actually enjoyable. I will say that I learned a lot from it, but I never tripped that hard on LSD again. I never had the desire to take it again. Now, I did experiment with microdosing on it because I have several friends who they're all about microdosing. So I was like, I'm gonna try it, see what happens. So, I took a small amount, and I noticed that, I did get a bit of that sort of different mind frame. It definitely gives you a shift in your perception. I had some creative thoughts, and so I see how people can use it for productivity and things like that. But there's kind of a weird edge to it. It was like, I just didn't quite feel right on it. And when it wore off, I felt very drained. I felt tired, and and in Chinese medicine, they say that psychoactive substances deplete your jing. Your jing is like your physical essence. It's your raw energy. So your body burns up jing to be in these altered states of consciousness, basically these heightened states. So it's kind of a gamble that you make. You're burning up some of your energy in order to experience higher states. So, it can be worth it for some people, but, I just noticed that these psychoactive substances made me feel depleted. So I no longer took them because I had this internal cultivation practice. I'm doing Qigong, I'm doing meditation, I'm doing breath work, and I'm able to keep myself very energized, elevated states without having to take these substances. So in my opinion, just to sum it up, semen retention and internal practice are very superior to taking these substances because, again, you're relying on this external circumstance. You're putting something external in your body that often depletes your energy. And in the end, when you are doing semen retention, when you're doing internal practice, you don't need these things because you can bring yourself to these heightened states of being. You can bring yourself into higher states of consciousness, enhanced energy flow, productivity, creativity, whatever you want to do. And you own it. That's the difference between the external approach where it's like, these things might not always be there. They can be taken away at any time. But when it's all your own internal energy, your sexual energy, your internal cultivation, no one can take that away from you. Of course, there may be a lot of external pressures, like being bombarded with sexual imagery, the belief systems, conflicting patterns of others, but you don't have to let any of those things affect you. When you have a strong center, when you have a strong willpower, and you're very intentional about what you're doing in your life, these external circumstances have no effect on you. So in my opinion, semen retention, internal cultivation is the ultimate path to be on. If you want heightened energy, higher levels of creativity, productivity, heightened spiritual connection. And you don't need any substances. I don't take drugs anymore because I don't need them. I can get high naturally without them, and I feel much better, no side effects. So thank you for watching this video. Make sure you grab my free ejaculation control guide. There's a link in the video description below. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. What do you think about this topic? Have a great day, my friends.